Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Dave's Math Channel. I'm your host, David Tare, where I've been running a feature on my three-volume series called The Math Lovers Book. Might as well do another plug for it. This is a three-volume series that I wrote for between 2019 and 2022. It's available both in Kindle and in paperback on Amazon.com. You can either search for my name, David Tare, or the title, The Math Lovers Book. Anyway, I think you'll enjoy it. So you might want to check it out. Anyway, with all that said, I'm starting a new chapter today in Volume 1. I'm starting Chapter 7, which is on logic, which is a very important area of math. Both a very old and a rather new area, as we'll see. And the guy who really kind of pioneered the whole theory, the mathematical theory of logic, was Aristotle. He was an ancient Greek. I'm sure you guys have all heard of him. Very famous ancient Greek mathematician and philosopher, natural philosopher. He didn't get everything right. In particular, his ideas of physics were wrong. But, he did a lot of great stuff, including these logical arguments known as syllogisms. So anyway, let's begin. Like I said, I'm starting a new chapter on logic. And we're going to go into a lot of different types of mathematical logic in this chapter. I'm starting out with Aristotelian syllogisms, but later we'll get into what's called classical logic, which is really Boolean algebra, which is kind of the modern way to learn logic. I'll get into that later after we're done with Aristotelian syllogisms. But today I'm going to talk about syllogisms. And what is a syllogism? Well, a syllogism is it's a logical argument, and they usually have 3 or 4 lines. And the kind of classic one you see most often is this one. Aristotle himself came up with this one. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. I think most people can agree this is a valid argument. I mean, if all men are mortal and Socrates is one of them, and Socrates, since he's a man, has to be mortal as well. But what's really nice about this type of argument is that it doesn't depend specifically on who or what you're talking about. I mean, we could substitute the general form of the syllogism. This is one of just 24. Has the form all x are y. A is an x, therefore A is y. And here we're using x as men. Y is mortal. A is Socrates in this case. So, then you just plug all those things in. You get all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. It doesn't matter what you plug in. It's still a valid argument. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true, though, when I actually give a kind of a parity argument that's false, but not because the logic's wrong. There's 2 things about arguments. They have to be both valid. Valid means that the conclusion follows logically from the premises. If you assume that if the premises are true, and the first 2 of these statements here are what are called premises. The third one is a conclusion, and usually we paraphrase a conclusion by saying therefore to start it out. So here's another logical argument with the same structure as the one I just gave. All cats have 9 lives. Garfield is a cat. Therefore, Garfield has 9 lives. And sure, this is a perfectly valid argument if the first 2 premises were true, if all cats really did have 9 lives, which of course they don't. That's just common folklore. Garfield is a cat. We all know that Garfield is really a cartoon character. Maybe some people have named their cats Garfield. I'm sure a lot of people have. And if we're talking about those Garfields, then it is true that those Garfields are cats. But Garfield doesn't have 9 lives because cats don't have 9 lives. Every living thing really only has 1 life, as far as we know. So I think you get the idea. It's still a valid argument, though. Like I said, this is just one of 24 Aristotelian syllogisms. I'm going to go through all the other ones And they all have statements in them. They have 3 or 4 lines. The last one's the conclusion. The first 2 or 3 are the premises. And every line of every syllogism has one of these 4 forms. All x are y, all x are not y, some x are y, and some x are not y. And it turns out that you can prove all of these syllogisms using modern logic, using classical logic. Aristotle didn't do that because he didn't have classical logic. Another way you can prove them is using set theory. And set theory is actually very closely related to modern logic or Boolean algebra. But I'm not going to get into that today. Anyway, I'm just going to very briefly present all 24 Aristotelian syllogisms. I already presented the first one. These all have Latin names too. I don't know if you guys can see this. If you're using your smartphone, I'm sure you can't read any of this. But the first one is given the name modus barbara. That's all x are y, all y are z. Therefore, all x are z. That's the one I just gave. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. And then there's there's a whole bunch of other ones. I'm not going to go through these, but it turns out there's a total of 24. All of these are logical. I think Aristotle came up with all of these. I don't think he proved them, but he knew they were true. And it also turns out this is a complete list. So any other supposed syllogism you can come up with that has, premises and a conclusion of the form that I showed is not going to be valid. It has to be one of these 24 forms. So this is nice because this gives us sort of a mechanical procedure for determining whether a given syllogism is valid. And I'm going to go through a couple examples here. So for the first example, suppose we're given the following logical argument, the following syllogism. All instructors are smart. All professors are instructors. Therefore, all professors are smart. And in order to see if this is valid, we have to substitute X, Y, and Z. We can substitute is X for instructors and Z for smart, and I guess Y for professors. You can just see if it has this form, and it turns out it does. It has the form of modus barbara, the first one again. So this is a valid argument. As long as it can reduce it to one of the 24 forms, it's valid. Let's do another example. All college students drink. Some college students are alcoholics. Therefore, some drinkers are alcoholics. Again, you have to substitute the right things in here. And it turns out if you substitute X for the set of college students, Y for the set of drinkers, and Z for the set of alcoholics, then this corresponds to syllogism 16, modus decimus. So that one's a valid argument too. But, you can come up with some that are invalid. For instance, did I actually give one here? I guess I forgot to put it on. But if we did all college students drink, some drinkers are alcoholics, therefore some college students are alcoholics. That was the third example I was supposed to include in here. That turns out to be invalid. And I think it's kind of easy to see that. I mean, just because some drinkers are alcoholics, it could be that all the drinkers that are alcoholics don't go to college. So then it wouldn't be true that some college students are alcoholics. Anyway, but you can also determine that by seeing that's not one of the 24 syllogisms I gave. Anyway, that concludes my video for today on syllogisms. So thank you for watching. Long live math, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.